Hey, this is Taylor Momsen from The Pretty Reckless, and you are listening to Appetite for Distortion with Brando. Guns N' Roses is fucking awesome.
You know where you are.
This is Appetite for Distortion.
And welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode 246. My name is Brando. Another dual interview episode for you today. Coming up in about a half an hour, we're going to speak to Queensrÿche singer Todd LaTorre about his debut solo album, Rejoice in the Suffering. February 5th is when it is officially released worldwide, so we're going to talk to him about that. Of course, Guns N' Roses. But first, as you heard at the beginning of the episode, I am so excited to finally get to speak to Taylor Momsen from The Pretty Reckless. She also, The Pretty Reckless, have a new album on the way. Finally, it's been delayed. What hasn't been because of, look outside, there's a pandemic. But finally, we're going to experience Death by Rock and Roll, February 12th, via Fearless Records. Taylor, I'm so honored to speak with you today for a variety of reasons, because I'm just a fan of your music, but you have just been talking so much about this new album. Didn't you just do like a whole Q&A on, online just like a few hours ago? So are you all talked out? I hope you still got some energy to talk to me.
Talked out. Can you ever be talked out? I think I'm always talked out. No, the Q&A is actually tomorrow. So.
Oh, okay.
I'm all good. You're getting a very fresh Taylor at the moment.
Okay. You know what? Maybe that's a good place to start, because I don't know what day it is. I was talking to, one of your friends.
Dude, I don't either.
I was talking to one of your friends on the other line. I'm usually going to a studio in Tribeca, but right now I'm here in Queens. My own little setup here, but I'm surrounded by cats. It's different. I just don't know what day it is. So I do know the day of the new album, though. That's you like my segue into that?
No, I do like your segue, and
Thank you.
You're speaking my language right now. I'm like, I know the record release date, and that's about it.
So February 12th.
February 12th on the books, and February 12th on the books. Every other day is kind of blending into every other day. Such is the times we're living in right now.
But it's interesting because and this is, you spoke about this at length, that you feel like, this album has taken a while, and obviously 2020 was a monkey wrench for a variety of reasons. So is it a sense of relief of just like, I can't wait for everybody to hear these songs? Or is it kind of just like a monkey off your back and be like, finally people get to hear these songs? Like what kind of spectrum are you at?
I think it's probably both. I think it's mostly excitement. I mean, I've been, listening to the record for the past year at like nauseum. So I'm mostly excited that, everyone's going to finally be able to hear it, because I'm really, really proud of this album. I think we really created something special, and in my humble opinion, I think it might be the best album we've ever made. And so, sitting on it for a year has been, slightly torturous. So I'm so excited that there's finally an actual date, and as the days kind of creep by, it's less than 2 weeks away now at this point. So or almost 2 weeks away. I don't know what's coming out, but
right, we don't know what day it is. We just know the date.
I don't know, but I know February 12th is coming out, and finally, and I'm so excited to share it with the world. I'm so proud of it. We worked so hard on it, and I can't wait to share it.
Was there any temptation in the singles that are out now, if that's just a teaser, tip of the iceberg, because the album is shaping up to be the best that you've done, which is saying a lot considering what you've already put out? Was there any temptation to go back and tweak, or just leave it alone and just say, when we're ready to promote it, this is it? Or was there any we got to go back and do this, no matter how slight,
I think that, as you always want to go back and change very minute little things. If you sit with something for too long, you start to nitpick it apart in an unhealthy way. But that just came due to the fact that, of quarantine for a year. The album was supposed to be out last year. So I think that, when we finished the record, it was, when you finish an album, it's finished. It's a complete product that you're, a complete work of art that you're extraordinarily proud of. And, it's a very kind of definitive moment when you finish a record, because there is no questioning it. And I think that if you're questioning anything on it, that means it might not quite be done. So as soon as you get to that kind of headspace where you go, this is done, it's like this huge kind of weight is lifted, and it's just a really exciting moment. And, that happened a year ago. So
right
now it's just been the waiting game of when everyone else can hear it. So not really. I've been I'm just really proud of it. And I've been, like I said, I've been listening to it incessantly, and I wouldn't change anything, honestly.
And I know that there's one thing that you couldn't change because it technically, I guess, wasn't yours. And I'm referring to the guitar, the solo from Tom Morello on your latest single, And Someone Went. So you're just able to, you're like that with Tom, and just be like, I don't know if you tweet him, you Snapchat him, whatever, and you just say contribute to this song. Was there any, I know you guys have a history together. Was there any sort of, a hesitation, I guess, to maybe go from just hey, we're friends, we'll tour, we'll do these things together, but to have him contribute musically, or it was just hey, I'll just get Tom, and there was no doubt that he was gonna help you.
Well, I mean, you never know, when reaching out to an artist, whether it's a good friend of yours or not, you never, when it's a creative collaboration, you never know what the person's going to say. I wouldn't say that there was a hesitation. I think that when first of all, I've known Tom for many years now at this point. But we really kind of reconnected a few years back at the Chris Cornell I Am the Highway tribute show, because we were both playing with Soundgarden on the song Loud Love. And that's really kind of where we reconnected or rebonded, rekindled our friendship, whatever you want to call it. And shortly after that show, we were starting to record the new record, and I had written the song And So It Went. And just due to the lyrical content and just the kind of overall vibe and energy of the song, it felt very fitting for him to be a part of it. It felt like it was something that was kind of very much up his alley. And I thought that he would contribute this kind of whole other element to it that would really elevate the song. And I'm not really one, I don't love collaborations in general. I think that especially now in today's market, I think that they can be used a lot as a marketing tool and a marketing technique, and instead of a natural, organic musical collaboration that, the song is actually asking for. And this song in particular, it just felt like he would take it to the next level. And I couldn't hear it completed without him. It made so much musical sense to me, I guess. And so I sent him a demo of it. I called him up and was like, hey man, we listen to this and see if you would want to maybe lend your voice to this, because you have such a defining sound that is unlike anyone else. I mean, I don't need to explain Tom Morello to you.
Right.
He's one of, he's a guitar, legend, that is so undeniably him. And I just thought that his voice would contribute so much. And, he took a listen and he said, absolutely, I'd love to be a part of this. And, when he sent back his tracks, and when we put the whole thing together, it did exactly what I thought it was going to do. He just comes in screaming and wailing like Tom Morello, and only Tom Morello can. And it just heightened the song to its full potential. And, I think the song itself is kind of a straightforward rock song, but if you weren't already cranking it to 10 by the time he comes in, you're certainly turning the dial up on your radio or whatever you're listening to.
Yeah,
so I got to thank him for that. He really took it to the next level, and he comes in with full force.
Right on. And I like your viewpoint toward collaboration, that it should come from an organic place. And since you guys have a relationship, even though it's done in the modern age where, people are sending it Pro Tools and all that, there's still an emotion tied to it. And you can hear that in the song. There's something that
absolutely. I think that that's so important that I think that, you know, the way that, you know, the kind of the press stunt aspect of it, like, you know, I wanted him to be on the song whether he wanted his name featured on it or not. I was like, we don't have to feature you, like whatever, like I just want your voice on this, because I think that you will, it's all song driven, like it all starts with song. And if there's another musician that's outside of, you know, our band that could take that song to its full potential, then I'm going to at least make the phone call and, you know, attempt to make that happen. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But it's, you know, in this case, it obviously did. But it's not about name recognition or anything like that. It's about really fulfilling the song and making the song as good as possible. If that makes sense. It
does. It would have been great if, you know, he could obviously contributed, but he decided to contribute and just didn't want his name on there, but used a really bad alias, like Shmam, something really bad. I don't know. Maybe that was funny. It was funnier in my head.
Or no alias.
It was funnier in my head.
Or no alias. I mean, look at My Guitar Gently Weeps by the Beatles. Like,
You're
it
right.
doesn't say featuring on it.
You're right.
But, you know, everyone knows who's playing on it.
A better analogy.
You know, that's the kind of voice that I love in music and musicians that I look up to, is where they really kind of have they have such an identity in their playing that you don't even have to put their name next to it. Anyone who knows anything is going to hear it and go, that's Tom Morello, and that's awesome.
You're right. And that's exactly what I heard. What I said to myself the first time I heard it, and so it went. You mentioned something that I do want to speak about, because one of the themes of this podcast, I other than maybe the obvious, and we'll get to that, the Appetite for Distortion GNR theme, but I often talk about mental health. I spoke about it last episode with Sean Dowdell of Gray Days about Chester Bennington. And, you know, you spoke about the Chris Cornell ceremony, and, you know, it obviously it hit everybody, you know, hard, but it was on a personal note. And I told this, most of my listeners know, and I told Sean this, that my dad passed away in similar fashion just a few years prior. So it's interesting.
I'm very sorry.
And thank you. And I'm very sorry for the loss of your friend. So, you know, you've been very, you're welcome. And you've been very outspoken about that. And one thing that gets lost as somebody who, and I'm talking about myself, who is a family member, because I lost my dad. I have lost friends to suicide. I'm still in therapy, you know, going through my own things. But it's important to see who's around you and how they're affected. So I want to say thank you to how open you've been, you know, about your experiences after Chris. So I guess if you can, you know, maybe elaborate more about the song, because I think I'm wondering if it's therapeutic, and this is where it's going to the new album, Only Love Can Save Me Now, right, where you collaborated with Kim and Matt from Soundgarden. So I guess I want to know if that was cathartic. Was that like kind of a therapeutic experience? Was that just strictly about the music? Because, you know, as somebody who's gone through what you're going through in a way, it's hard. It's hard to go back on the mic. You know, I went back on the air like 5 days after. I knew if I didn't, I would never return, you know? So if you can talk about that experience. Yeah,
I mean, it's a very loaded question.
I know.
I'm not exactly sure where to begin. I mean, obviously the loss of Chris was extraordinarily devastating to me, you know, as it was the entire, you know, music community and music world. It was you know, it's tragic. And it came as a huge shock, you know, as any situation like that. And I mean, I guess I kind of just have to go through my like little rigmarole spiel here, but you know, it was, when I found out the news, I was, you know, devastated is kind of an understatement of the term. I was in utter shock. I thought, I was convinced that everyone was lying to me, and it was just some kind of like sick joke. And it took a while to actually kind of sink in. And, you know, we were in the middle of a touring cycle at the time, and we played a few shows after that, but, you know, I kind of came to the conclusion that I was not in a great place to be public, and that getting on stage every night and, you know, as you said, like going back to the microphone and getting on stage every night and trying to perform an entertaining show for fans that are, so deserving of the world, and they're deserving of, my full attention and me at my best. And I was not. I was just very unemotionally prepared for that kind of trauma and that kind of shock. And I came to the realization that I was not in a good place to be public, and that this was unfair to the fans, and I needed some time. So I canceled everything, and I went home and just to try to, process and grieve in my own time. And as soon as I started to kind of wrap my head around everything and put my feet back on the ground or whatever, I started to write a few songs, get back on the horse, or whatever stupid analogy you want to throw in there. I was calling our producer Cato and asked, going, hey, we need to move forward. Like, I have these songs. I don't know if they're for a record or what they're for exactly or anything, but, we got to do something. So let's get in the studio. And as soon as we kind of started to put those plans in motion, I got the phone call that Cato had died in a motorcycle accident. And that was like, it was the nail in the coffin for me, where it was just very like, 1-2 punch very quickly of losing, an idol and a friend, and then losing our producer and my best friend in the whole world. And, Cato was so much more than just a producer. I mean, he was essentially the fifth member of the band who just didn't tour with us. There would be no Pretty Reckless if I had never met Cato. And so that took me into a very downward, just very dark spiral of this kind of hole of blackness of depression and substance abuse and everything that comes along with grief and loss and trauma and all of that. And it was, it's a very, very dark period in my life, I guess. And I think that the scariest part about it was that I wasn't sure if I could get out of it. And I wasn't sure if, the bigger thing was, I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I think that was kind of the scariest thing, is I'd become very content in being numb and kind of fading into nothing. And, anyway, sorry, I just got very heavy. My point is, mental health is something that I'm very glad that it's become a subject of, a topic that is being talked about now, because, I think there has been so much like taboo around it, where it's just, no one speak about it. And now that it's become, kind of part of the nomenclature of society and people are speaking about it, I think that can only be good. So anyway, to make a very long story short, I mean, from my own personal experience, the way that I kind of pulled myself out of it was through music. As cliche as that may sound, I've always said that music is like my best friend. It's the thing that I've always been able to turn to in times of great happiness and in times of great strife. And it's always there for me. Like, it's always supported me, and it's never let me down. And, I went through a period there where I couldn't listen to music. Everything was too painful. Everything brought back a memory that I wasn't ready to handle. But eventually I hit the point where I needed it. Like I needed food, I needed water, I needed music, because it's the thing that feeds my soul and like keeps me going. And so I started at the beginning. I started by listening to the Beatles. I kind of asked myself, I was like, what made you fall in love with music in the first place? And the answer was the Beatles. It's the first band I ever heard. It's the first band I fell in love with. They're the reason I started writing songs when I was very young. And so I started there. I started at the beginning, and I kind of rebuilt myself through music and through the records that I grew up loving, and almost kind of re-educating myself again. So it almost felt like I was being reborn through the records that I grew up with. So, I started with the Beatles, and then went into Led Zeppelin and The Who, and then Pink Floyd and Bob Dylan and Neil Young and Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton. And eventually that led to me being able to listen to Soundgarden again and and having that bring me joy, which led to me picking up a guitar, which, everything kind of leads
step by step
into the next thing, which, step by step, baby steps. And it led to me picking up a guitar, which the natural step after that of just starting to play music again, just for the fun of it, led to me writing, which led to this kind of outpouring of this album, I guess. Like I didn't have to try to write this record. It really just kind of poured out of me whether I wanted it to or not. Like I don't think I even really had a choice in the matter. And Only Love Can Save Me Now was one of those songs. And it was one of the songs that was written fairly early in the writing process, but it was actually one of the last songs we recorded for the album. Because it was something that I needed to kind of take my time with, I think. Like every song has its own journey, and that one I needed to kind of sit with in order to kind of see it to its full potential. And, when I finished writing it, I called Matt and Kim, and I had become, relatively close over, those years and, everything we all went through together and separately and whatever. We became very good friends. And I called them and was like, I sent them a demo and was like, would you guys want to play on this? Like, I think that you got your unique voice that is unlike anyone else would really take this song and make it something extraordinarily special. And the song itself is something that I really worked incredibly hard on and I love, but I really think that you guys would take it to its full potential. And, they listened and they said yes. And to make a full, I'm so rambling right now, so I'm sorry. But
it's okay.
To make a long story short, it was a fantastic experience. I mean, it was one of the last songs we recorded, but we did it. We flew to Seattle. We did it in Seattle. We did it at London Bridge Studios, which is where Soundgarden made Louder Than Love, and Pearl Jam recorded 10, and Alice in Chains made Dirt, and that was just. I don't want to speak for them because that's not my place, but for me, it was this very kind of full circle moment. Everything we've been through, to be in that studio and in that space together again, creating something new, at least for me, was this very beautiful full circle moment that was just absolutely incredible. And that song turned out to be, it's certainly one of my favorite songs on the record by far. And I can't wait for people to hear it. So there's my little 15-minute wrap up or 15-second wrap up.
And that's all right, because I ask you, and apologies for the loaded question, because I know I only have you up for a certain amount of time, but just from Brandon to Taylor, I wanted to thank you for speaking out about it, what you went through, and what you just spoke about just now. The process of being dark, and it's reflected in songs like 25, which people can hear right now, and the step by step to get to a good place. And I've had to go step by step, and I'll wrap by saying, because now I'm in a good place, because I'm on the phone with Taylor Momsen, and I want to, ask you before you get out of here. There's a picture of you with Axl Rose, where he looks like as much as a fanboy as I am right now, just very giddy. So can you tell us maybe, is there any backstory behind that photo or any fun stories about touring with them? Because I was going to ask you, because you alluded to this earlier in the interview, to get Slash mixed in with the Pretty Reckless, I would love to hear a duet with you and Axl, if it comes organically, of course,
Well, I'm assuming, I think there's a lot of Photoshop pictures of us together, but there is one that is real, which was taken at a Paris club, while we were on tour with them. And he was doing a very acoustic stripped back underplay show in Paris that we were, fortunate enough to go to. And he was just phenomenal. Touring with Axl and Guns N' Roses, it was great. What legends, and to watch him perform every night and not miss a step. That guy, he's so good. It was incredible. And we were supposed, before the pandemic happened, we were supposed to be doing it again. We were supposed to, in 2020, we were supposed to be opening for Guns N' Roses again. And I was very much looking forward to that. So, hopefully that will come back around when touring comes back around. Because it was a great experience the first time. And, now that Guns N' Roses is actually a reformed, full unit again with all the original, or most of the original members, Slash and Axl, are back together. That was going to be something I was very much looking forward to, and I hope that tour actually does come to fruition in the future, because it was a great time the first time, and it can only get better from there. So
I'm excited. I think that I might have to go all out and buy a front row ticket for that, because my GNR Smashing Pumpkins tickets were canceled because of the pandemic. But now add Pretty Reckless to that, I might have to see 2 GNR shows next time. Thank you again, Taylor.
Hey, I mean, can you ever see Guns N' Roses too many times? So
no, you can't. Same thing with because I've yet to see The Pretty Reckless, but whenever I've gotten a chance to play you on the radio, I've certainly played the hell out of you. So February 12th, a date I can remember. Thank you so much, Taylor. I hope we get to do this again.
No, absolutely. Thanks so much, Brando.
That was so much fun. You know what we're going to do? We're going to get Todd LaTorre on now, and we're going to do my monologue. We're going to kind of wrap up both interviews after that one. We're going to reflect on the episode that was. So let's get Todd LaTorre from Queensrÿche on the line right now. Hey, Todd, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm living the dream. I'm talking to
awesome.
Todd LaTorre. As everybody is, kind of quarantined. I'm on my couch right now, usually in the studio in Tribeca, New York City. But if you don't mind me asking, where are you calling from today?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
Nice. Okay.
You guys are got a bunch of snow there.
A few days ago, it's starting to melt. Thankfully. You're from, I know you're from Florida. Are you from St. Petersburg specifically?
Yeah, I was born here. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Still live here. Yeah, born here. Still live here, and for now, you know.
Okay.
One day I'll relocate to Greece, where my wife's from.
Okay.
And you know, I try to go back and forth when I can, but yeah, with the shutdown, nobody's really doing a whole lot of anything out and about in their normal workplaces. But yeah, weather's nice here today, and I can't complain. You know, I'm on the phone with you, so that's good.
And your solo album, your debut, see how it segues into it? Your debut solo album comes out tomorrow. I'm going to put this out after, the same day I was recording it. I know it's a podcast, but I keep it real, as the kids say.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, rejoice the suffering. Rejoice in the suffering. Let me get it right. So guess what? You've taken advantage of the pandemic. We were just talking about, it's different. So this was always in the works. So when was this gonna happen? Pre-pandemic? Is this kind of like a blessing in disguise?
5 years ago.
Fair.
It's been something we've talked about, like me and the label, for years. And, with Queensrÿche always touring and traveling, it seems like I never sink my teeth back into this stuff because I'm in Queensrÿche world all the time. And then when I come home for just a little bit of time, I honestly, I don't feel like working on music when I've been traveling and I'm only home for a few days or a week or even 2 weeks. It's tough to every single day just do that. And so when the shutdown happened, I called Craig Blackwell, the guy who co-wrote everything with me and played guitar and stuff on the record. I said, this is our time right now. Cause I'm never going to have this kind of downtime. This never happens. So let's take advantage. And that's exactly what we did. Totally took advantage of this time and banged it out.
And I'm glad you did because I'm going to be honest, as I said, as the kids say, keeping it real, I was just listening to Rejoice in the Suffering in my headphones.
Cool.
Yeah, just now. And I was going to ask you, about the band. So Craig Blackwell, you said plays guitar, right?
Yep. Craig Blackwell plays all the guitars and bass on it and did the keys. And then I did drums and vocals. So it was a two-man show.
I can't
Just
believe
2 of us.
That's 2 people. I can't believe it's 2 people. That's it. Because I was sitting here and I have no musical talent. That's why I do radio. I can't, my air drumming looks like I'm having a seizure, have a guitar, I'm having a stroke, but whatever. I'm doing my version of air guitar and air drums and my, as I said, I'm at home, my fiance's next to me and I think she's second guessing her choice. Cause I was so into it. It is a great, great aggressive album and such a classic voice you have on it. So, let me say,
it's a groover.
It's a lot of words. I was going to say aggressive, just a classic, old school, but it sounds fresh kind of metal. So let me just say congratulations. Yeah. I know you said 5 years, but it's finally out. Or it will be.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Some people have already gotten their copies, from pre-orders and whatnot. And, to make sure that it's not showing up super late, plus with weather and everything that's going on, different parts of the country. And it's a worldwide release as well. So some people are already getting it before its official release date, and they're already enjoying it, and it's cool, man. It's exciting. It is kind of, it's like back to our roots on this record, and the stuff that we like about different aspects of heavy metal. And it was all about writing fun, cool songs that make you want to groove, that have attitude, that are aggressive, but still have, some slow stuff and dynamics. And it was just a culmination of songs we wrote over a 4-month time of stuff we just like. So it was just really having fun, and that's what's translated on the record.
It came out because that's how I felt. I felt to myself, I'm like, what was the last time, that I've just kind of like, I don't know, gave me energy. Maybe I don't know if I'm coming off extra hyper right now, but this is off the high, honestly, of maybe some Red Bull. But rejoice in the suffering. It's a groove. It's aggressive. Your voice is great, and I guess it's an interesting segue because I don't know if you need a sip of water. Please, if you need one, take one.
Yeah, I just got up not long ago, and I'm having a coffee, and it's just
okay.
I'm just clearing my throat. Sorry.
No, all good, because it's a good segue. Something I wanted to ask you is your vocal regimen. What is it? And how is that?
I don't really have one.
No, and because I guess it hasn't changed since you've been home, since you haven't been touring, and it hasn't been hard to keep your voice up. You haven't been doing anything. You're just talented. That's it.
It's just, a lot of it's conditioning. When you're touring all the time, you're constantly singing, and so it's like exercising, working out. If you don't lift weights for a period of time and you go to lift the same weight, it's not going to be as easy. But, having done the record and writing and recording and singing and doing all that for that 4-month period, I was singing, constantly every day. Now that since it's been completed, I haven't been singing as much. I'm just kind of doing other things around the house and just other things in life. And typically I really don't do much. I don't really have a special regimen per se. Maybe I'll do a few little warm-ups depending as a gauge to kind of see where my voice is sitting that day. And it depends on how much I've been talking. Like I've been doing a lot of press and interviews. So
right. So
my voice has been
no hot tea,
kind of a little bit worn out.
I
do drink hot tea, which I like, but I'm a big coffee drinker. So I drink a lot of coffee. I drink many cups of coffee a day. And a lot of it has to do with just rest and the weather. And there's a million variables, but there's never one. I know singers that have all these special do's and don'ts. I don't really have that. I just kind of I don't know. I've done everything wrong that you shouldn't, they say, don't do this, don't do that. And I've done them all and literally had the best performances of my life. And then I've tried to do everything by the book and sounded like crap. So I don't have anything that's tried and true, but I do have things that help me a little bit with kind of gauging where my voice is and that kind of thing. But I wish I had a better answer for you. Yes, do this every day and do that. I really don't have that.
No, there is no better answer. Your answer is yours. That's pretty much.
Yeah, everyone's body's different. So what works for somebody else I might not feel the benefit of that. I don't know.
Another thing I'm curious if I can pronounce the word, about is as you've gotten, I guess this is, a lot of people might be introduced to you for their first time that may not know Queensrÿche, and you just see this new solo album by Todd LaTorre and discover you. And, you see, I don't want to, give you away, but, you're in your 40s, right? So it's
yeah, I'll be 47 this month.
Yeah. So I don't want to, I'm 37. I don't know how young or old I sounded, but even, I guess to compare, I know when I was 27, as somebody on the radio, I sounded much different. What about you and your voice as you've gotten older? Is there anything you've noticed about it, things that you've learned, maybe that you can do? Because, I've taken minimal vocal lessons, things like that, but a lot of it's kind of self-taught or watching other people, what to do, had my pacing and everything. So what have you learned, I guess, as a vocalist, and maybe has your voice changed since you were, first when you first started?
Well, that's a good question. They say that your voice changes as you age.
Right.
And so that's probably an inevitable factor. And then you couple that with maybe 100 shows a year. And I've been in Queensrÿche. Well, this will be 9 years. This year makes 9 years I've been in the band. So You've got a ton of touring. And here's the weird part about that answer is you say, okay, well, you've been conditioned and you've toured and performed so many shows. Wouldn't that make your voice even better because you're using it? At the same time, it's still tissue and it reacts to different environmental factors and all these other things that I guess your voice does change. And also when I was in Crimson Glory before Queensrÿche, right, I was singing much higher. And I don't sing those songs anymore. And so I think some of my really high range isn't as good. When I listen to some of the stuff I sang in Crimson Glory, I'm like, holy crap, I did that? There's no way I could do that now. So my wife always says, no, I think you still have it. You just don't, you've conditioned your voice differently for the Queensrÿche stuff. And so there are some technique things that did change when I got into Queensrÿche with my voice. So it's something that I really want to kind of do is go out into my studio, put on some of the old stuff that I used to sing before Crimson Glory and find that mechanical thing that, okay, I can access this note. Some days I can go to the stratosphere effortlessly. And then there's other days where it's just like, not even close. I mean, there's no way I can do it. And it's not that physically my voice doesn't do that. It's not capable. It does. It's just a matter of, well, why did I do it yesterday and today I can't?
Right.
And so it's a constant learning thing for me. And I'm a self-taught singer. I've never taken vocal lessons to learn how to do what I know how to do. And so it's just constant experimentation. And sometimes it's a big mental battle because when you can't hit a note that you know that you've done before, but it just doesn't seem accessible anymore, that's really hard on your psychology because now you're seeing the note not even attainable. And you've already placed some physical limitations just from the psychological aspect of that. So my voice has changed in some ways, but I mean, I hit some decent notes on this record, but nothing like what I did in Crimson Glory. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous, actually. Like, I don't know that I want to sing that high.
It's not necessary on this record.
I'm a baritone. I'm actually a baritone. Range has a high end and a low end, and I am a baritone. So what people think, wow, that's so high, they think I'm a tenor, but I'm actually not a tenor at all.
I could tell from your radio voice, you're a baritone. You have a good radio voice.
Hi, you're listening to, I can get pretty, but hitting the low notes and having warmth and resonance around that note is also, people might be impressed with the high notes, but when we do a song like Silent Lucidity and they hear the ease of singing in the lower register, wow, I didn't know you could sing that low. And I'm like, well, that's actually how I kind of speak. And when I'm normally speaking, I'll pitch it higher just because it's easier to hear and it cuts through the ambient noise better. But if I'm just speaking normally, like relaxed and calm, this is where my voice sits down here. But a lot of times I'll kind of talk up here because it's easier. It translates easier.
There's so much that goes into it. It's just absolutely fascinating. So I appreciate you breaking that down because, again, me and wanting to have the seamless transition until I announce it. Obviously this is Appetite for Distortion, and I was appreciative that you wanted to come on a Guns N' Roses themed podcast. Obviously, I could talk to anybody and anything using that 6 degrees of GNR bacon, as I like to call it. So when you had told me, or through our common friend, that you used to cover Guns N' Roses back in the day when you could hit those high notes, right? Was that the period that that band covered GNR?
Well, I went back in my teens, like when Appetite for Destruction came out.
Okay.
I was playing in a band as a drummer. And so we would cover like Rocket Queen. We would cover Mr. Brownstone, Paradise City. But I always liked to sing, even though I wasn't the singer in the band. And there was a lot of stuff that I could mimic really well, from like the song Patience. And again, just experimenting with what makes this singer sound the way that he sounds. And Axl Rose, when that record came out, and keep in mind, I was a big metalhead, and Guns N' Roses isn't metal. They're not a metal band.
I hear you.
But the glam scene was like, I wasn't into that. And so Guns N' Roses wasn't that to me. They came out with this sound. It was like everyone was playing pointy guitars or Strats, and then here comes this guy with a top hat and a Les Paul. And you're like, the Les Paul, come on, and then they played, and it was like, okay, this sounds like nothing else right now. There's something different here. And they were edgy and raw. And then God damn, the melodies of those songs are just, they're perfect. And that's one of my all-time favorite records still. I mean, in worldwide, it's a very coveted album. And that was a very influential album for me in many ways. And, I loved drumming it, but the singing on it was, Axl Rose has a very identifiable sound.
Sure.
And, yeah, I mean, great band. It's cool to see them still playing.
Is there a song that, when you heard his voice, in particular, kind of as a singer, from a singer's perspective, that you were like, whoa? Because you hear a lot, and this actually happened to bring in, maybe I'm scoring brownie points now. They're bringing my fiance again into this conversation. I recently played her Appetite for Destruction full through for the first time. She's a Dave Matthews fan. It is what it is. But she thought, welcome.
They're a great band.
They are. I kid. Welcome to the Jungle and It's So Easy. Of course, the first two tracks. She thought it was two different singers. And I've heard that before from other people.
Well, and that's, he had that, he's very bassy. He's got a deep voice. So when he would do "It's So Easy," and he had that kind of little bit of a masky sound. When everybody's trying to please it, then gets into the high stuff like "Welcome to the Jungle," and the guy had different voicings, and he had unique little isms. James Hetfield will do that little tail at the end, and certain singers have their own little thing, and he just had some different voicings and good vibrato. But I remember when I heard the end of Welcome to the Jungle, where he does that, he's going through the scale, and it's a very long, he does it for a long time, and I was like, wow, that's got to be really hard to do. Of course, he's a young guy back in those days doing that, when your right testicle hasn't dropped yet. And but he was just masterful back then in his own way, and there was a perfection to the imperfection. There was a purity there that existed, that didn't sound formulated or contrived. It sounded very authentic, and I think that came across to a lot of the people that heard that. It didn't sound, 101. Here's the formula, guys. This is how we're going to do the song. It was almost like, we're just going to write what we write. And if you like it, great. If you don't, whatever. And there's some, you can hear that in that record. And I don't know how they made it or anything like that, but I'm assuming that might be true, that there was just a very uninhibited, unrestrained aspect to that writing and approach and delivery that a lot of labels, well, now I don't know that you're getting much nurturing from record labels to develop an artist, but
right.
It seems like they were just given carte blanche, just here, do what you do. And it worked. They didn't sound like anybody else, and they don't sound like anybody else.
Is there something, you're right, because there are a lot of singers in any instrument that have that little something that it's them, it's identifiable. Is there something that you personally want to be known for as a vocalist?
I would like people to know that I'm not a one-trick pony.
Cool. That
I do have other textures and colors and sounds to my voice. And not that, a lot of singers have just one sound, and no matter who that singer is, if they said, "Hey, I want to hear Steven Tyler sing this song," like you're going to know, identify, oh, that's Steven Tyler or Steve Perry or Axl Rose, for example. Like he has a very identifiable sound, and even though he could do other things, but I like to think that I'm able to conform into another voice where you would hear me on one song and then hear me on a Queensrÿche song and then play Vanguards of the Dawn Wall off my new record, and you would never know that's the same guy. I like that.
Right on. Rejoice in the Suffering, a worldwide release, February 5th via Rat Pack Records. Todd LaTorre, thank you so much for your time today, and I hope we get to do this again. Absolutely, man. Anytime you want to, you need another guest to jump on your podcast or anything like that, I'd be honored to, and I appreciate the questions. They were really unique and creative and fun. Thank you. And thanks for checking out the record, and I do hope that you like it. I do. And share it around and talk about it, and we'll make a little splash with it. So, well, I'm going to take off my headphones, blast it, and just piss off my fiance. So that's what I'm going to do right now. There you go. And then tonight she'll say, "Okay, you got to play that. Now we get to listen to my music, and you can listen to Dave Matthews tonight." She woke up in the morning. All right, there we go. All right, thanks so much. That drummer's one of my favorite drummers too. Oh yeah, what's Carter Buford, right? Yep. Yeah, I love his phrasing as a drummer and his hi-hat work. He's a super tasty drummer. Love that guy's drumming. They are very talented. Anyway. Anyway, that's another podcast. Thanks so much, Todd. You have a great day. Yeah, thank you. Thank you kindly. Appreciate it. You got it. Bye. Take care. All right. Amazing. 2 great interviews today about 2 great records. So let's wrap up. Let's if you've been listening since episode 1, you kind of can tell I'm making this up as I go along. So you know what? Let's kind of have like a post-interview wrap-up, and that's what I'm going to call my monologue. Monologue. Just from the soundbite. I mean, I'm a special person. You can tell. And I really appreciate the Todd acknowledging my creative questions. Todd does a lot of interviews. And I was kind of watching one before to kind of, I do my best not to ask all the same questions other people do. And he did a podcast that was 4 hours with somebody. I mean, Todd is great, but that's a long time, so it's hard to be creative, but not me and my chemical imbalance, apparently. A good thing I can laugh because, and it goes as we reflect back with the Taylor interview, I could be all over the place, even though this is a Guns N' Roses themed podcast. We're talking about depression, suicide. We're talking about metal. We're talking about all these different things. So with meeting me for the first time, after you get Appetite for Distortion, this is a GNR themed podcast. You learn about me. You're a humble host. So with adding all these new videos up on YouTube, maybe you're watching this on YouTube now. My numbers are still great on podcasts. However you listen, you get your podcast. Thanks for downloading and streaming, however you do it. And if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please do. That's where all the Zoom interviews live. And I'm just trying to throw pictures up whenever I just do over the audio, whenever I'm doing an audio only episode like this one. So somebody commented on the interview, another dual episode that I did, the episode with Ricky Warwick of Thin Lizzy, Black Star Riders, and Steve Gonsalves of Ghost Nation. Great episode, very interesting. I would like to get some feedback on the Steve Gonsalves interview, by the way. What did you think of that? So this person who I don't know, always getting new listeners all the time. That's the point. Michael R. writes on YouTube, cool interview, although the host seems a little unstable. We all get a little mad sometimes. I can laugh about it now because I know what being unstable feels like, and I know where I am now. I mean, who wants to be completely stable? I'll actually give a shout out to my buddy Bill Powell at Bill Powell Photo. He writes, "Who wants to be stable anyway? That's boring." Yes, that's the point. That's the point. So, I think today we had very non-boring interviews with Taylor Momsen and Todd LaTorre. And Taylor, she could have kept going. We spoke off the air about it. She's like, "Oh, I thought since this is a podcast, we were going to be talking for a couple hours." And we had like a half an hour reserved. It's fine. She's a ton of different interviews, different amount of time slots for each, so it's easy to get confused about that. So she could have kept going. She wanted to talk more about Guns N' Roses, so we'll get her on again. I believe that for sure. And Todd also, he was great. His great insight into vocals. And I don't know about you, just thinking about how that pertains to Axl Rose now. It's just interesting to hear it from his perspective because I don't sing. So I never want to be too critical of what Axl can, quote unquote, can or can't do. Because you get older, your voice changes. It is what it is. And I still enjoy him in concert. So if I can ever, interview one of Axl's vocal coaches, I think that was going through my head then. I think that's on my to get list. And whoever is on your to get list, whoever you want to hear on the podcast, don't forget you can always reach out on social media. That's how the conversation continues in between episodes. Facebook.com, Twitter, at the AFD Show, Appetite for Distortion on Instagram, again on YouTube. Always reading comments, whether they're complimentary or they're telling me that I'm unstable. I'm reading them and conversing with you. It's a very fan-friendly podcast. Okay, and I will tell you about this. Speaking of fan-friendly, Doug Goldstein, former manager of Guns N' Roses, is very fan-friendly. As you can tell if you've listened to